11 habits that make you silently attractive. There's a kind of power that doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't perform. But when it walks into the room, every head turns. It's not about loud clothes. Not about flexing muscles. Not about filters, likes, or followers. It's about energy, about a presence that's rooted in certainty, self-respect, and a silent inner fire that says, I know who I am, and I don't need to convince anyone. See, the world is addicted to noise, to validation, to over-explaining, but the ones who draw people in without a word, the ones who leave an imprint with just a glance, they move from a place of discipline, of inner alignment, of habits that radiate magnetic power without trying. Today, we uncover the 11 habits that make you silently attractive, not the kind that fades in a week, but the kind that's felt in someone's bones. Let's break them down through 6 powerful keynotes. These keynotes are the blueprint. Embody them, and your energy will speak so loudly you'll never have to shout again. The unbreakable habit of radical self-respect. There comes a moment in your life when you stop asking for permission to be powerful. And that moment is when self-respect is no longer negotiable. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold your greatness. You stop apologizing for your truth. Because when you fully respect yourself, the world begins to reflect that respect right back to you. Radical self-respect isn't soft, it's not polite, it's not passive, it's fierce, it's decisive, it's a line in the sand. It says, I no longer betray myself to please others. And that shift, it's the moment the attraction turns on. Not the shallow kind, but the real deep, magnetic kind that can't be ignored. When you start walking like you know your worth, people notice. You don't have to say a word. They feel it in how you enter the room, how you hold your head, how you make decisions. Because self-respect is an energy. It's not something you declare. It's something you embody. Most people give away their power because they've been trained to be liked, to be accepted, to avoid rejection. But here's the truth. The more you water yourself down to be liked, the more invisible you become. The moment you step into radical self-respect, you become unforgettable. You become undeniable, and it's not because you're louder, it's because you're solid. Respecting yourself starts with the little things. How you talk to yourself when no one's listening. How you treat your own time, your own dreams, your own body. You can't ask the world to honor you when you're constantly dishonoring yourself behind closed doors. Silent attraction begins when you make integrity with yourself a daily habit. The moment you stop tolerating disrespect is the moment your life changes. People are always testing your boundaries, subtly, sneakily, sometimes unconsciously. But when you respond with certainty and calm power instead of explanation or defense, you train the world how to treat you. Self-respect is your instruction manual to others. This is who I am, this is what I allow, and that's non-negotiable. You become magnetic when you're selective, not desperate. You don't chase people, attention, or opportunities. You attract them by holding your standard, and if someone doesn't match that frequency, you don't lower yours, you walk away. That quiet confidence, that refusal to beg, that's what draws people in and leaves them wondering, what is it about this person? Self-respect also means letting go of those who refuse to rise. You don't argue with small minds. You don't plead with people to see your value. You simply remove yourself, no drama, no explanation, just a clear decision rooted in truth. The more you value your peace, the more others will begin to value your presence. Most people think being nice means being available, but being attractive means being unavailable to nonsense. When you have self-respect, you stop overgiving. You stop pouring from an empty cup. You realize that loving yourself fiercely is not selfish. It's essential. Because people treat you how you treat you. And when you respect yourself, you stop seeking closure from those who were never open. You stop obsessing over why they left, why they didn't choose you, why they didn't appreciate you. Because self-respect says their inability to see my worth isn't a reflection of my value. It's a reflection of their limits. Here's the truth. You can't fake self-respect. You either live it or you don't. You either walk like you're worth it, or you chase like you've forgotten who you are. You don't need approval. You need alignment. And when you're aligned, your aura shifts. People feel it before they hear you. This kind of power doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It whispers into the room with the energy of someone who refuses to beg for space. You belong, and you no longer tolerate being treated as if you don't. That's not arrogance. That's truth rooted in awareness. Radical self-respect turns you into a lighthouse. You're not chasing ships. You're standing tall in your light, unshaken by storms, guiding the right ones in and letting the wrong ones crash elsewhere. You become the standard, and the ones who are meant for you will rise to meet you, not pull you down. This isn't about ego. This is about soul, about reclaiming the parts of you that got buried under rejection, manipulation, and self-doubt. It's about walking back into the world with your crown not just on your head, but bolted to your spirit. Because when you respect yourself at that level, your presence becomes your statement. You don't have to announce your value. People feel it in your eyes, in your voice, in your boundaries. You no longer need to be loud to be heard. You've become silently unstoppable. The habit of speaking less and listening more. There's a rare kind of power that exists in restraint. In a world that's obsessed with talking, proving, and oversharing, the one who pauses, who listens with full presence, becomes a force of nature. Silent attraction lives in this space. It's the space where you don't speak to be heard, you listen to understand. And people can feel that deeply. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. In fact, it's often the quiet one, the one who's reading the energy, watching what others miss, studying the unspoken language in body movements, micro-expressions, and voice inflections. This person is not passive, they're lethal. Because when you listen with intent, you learn what others are too busy performing to hear. Speaking less doesn't mean withholding your truth. It means mastering the timing and depth of your voice. You no longer throw your words around like confetti. You speak when it counts. And when you do, people listen because they've learned that you don't waste breath. You only speak when your words carry weight. It's easy to talk. It's easy to fill space with noise, but the habit of intentional silence, that takes discipline. It takes emotional intelligence. It takes knowing who you are so deeply that you don't need to interrupt to feel seen. You already see yourself, and your energy communicates what your mouth doesn't need to. This is how attraction grows. People are drawn to mystery, to presence, to depth. When you stop explaining yourself, stop over-talking, and start being present, your energy shifts from needy to magnetic. You're no longer trying to control the conversation. You're guiding it with your stillness, and that stillness, that's what pulls them in. You become someone who people want to impress, not someone trying to impress others. Because you're not jumping to be heard. You're not correcting every detail. You're not interrupting with your opinions. You're listening fully with your whole body, your whole spirit. And when people feel that, they feel respected, even if you've said almost nothing. Silent power is not silence from fear. It's silence from mastery. You don't have to say, I'm strong. You show it with how little you react. You don't have to say, I'm smart. You prove it with the questions you ask. And you don't have to prove anything, because the way you observe, engage, and respond speaks volumes louder than any shout ever could. When you listen more, you begin to hear what's beneath the words. You hear the wound behind the anger, the insecurity behind the brag, the need behind the silence, and that makes you dangerous. Not in a harmful way, but in an influential one. Because you now know the game people don't even know they're playing. This habit separates the emotionally reactive from the emotionally sovereign. Those who listen are no longer easily baited. They're no longer triggered by surface-level drama. They hear, observe, and then decide what's worthy of response. That pause, that moment of inner power, that's where real attraction lives. And let's talk about how this makes you unforgettable. When people walk away from a conversation with you, they don't remember your words. They remember how seen they felt. They remember that for those few moments, someone was fully present, not distracted, not waiting to reply, just with them. And in today's disconnected world, that kind of presence is intoxicating. This habit is also rooted in confidence. People who feel the need to dominate conversations often fear being overlooked. But the truly powerful know they can't be ignored, not because they speak often, but because when they speak, they shift the room. Your silence becomes the space where others reveal themselves, and here's a truth that few people understand. When you speak less, your words become more valuable. It's supply and demand. If you're always talking, people tune you out. But if you've built a reputation for speaking with precision, people lean in the moment you open your mouth. You don't have to raise your voice. Your voice raises the vibration. Listening more also makes you wise beyond your years. Because you're constantly learning, every interaction becomes data. Every word spoken by someone else becomes a window into their psyche. You begin to connect dots others don't even see, and eventually you speak with such clarity and power that people wonder where you learned all of it. You learned it in the silence. You learned it by listening. You learned it by being fully awake while everyone else was too busy talking over each other. And that's the moment people realize they're dealing with someone different. Someone grounded, someone rare, someone they can't quite figure out. And that mystery is electric. So speak less, listen more, master the pause, use your silence as a weapon, not a weakness. Because when your presence does the talking, your attraction becomes undeniable. The habit of emotional neutrality lets get something straight. Emotional neutrality is not numbness, it's mastery. It's the ability to feel everything and choose how to respond instead of being a puppet to your triggers. And that right there, that's where the power is. That's where silent attraction is born. When you become the calm in the chaos, not the chaos in the room. In today's reactive world, people explode over texts, unravel from comments, spiral from rejection. But the one who can remain composed, centered, unshaken, that person becomes magnetic. Why? Because in a world where everyone's emotions are on display, the one who controls theirs becomes rare and valuable. You don't become attractive by proving your point or winning arguments. You become attractive when you don't need to. When you can say, I understand, without internalizing someone else's storm. When you can witness manipulation and walk away instead of engaging in a battle that costs you your peace. That's power, and people can feel it. This kind of emotional neutrality is a habit. It's trained, built, forged in hard moments. It starts when someone tries to bait you, and you breathe instead of bite. It grows when someone tries to shame you, and you recognize it's about them, not you. It strengthens when someone tries to discard you, and you realize your value never left with them. The silently attractive don't flinch every time someone withdraws love or attention. They don't beg, plead, or over-explain. They respond from a place of centered knowing, not emotional desperation. Because when you know your worth, you don't need to fight to prove it. You don't collapse when someone doesn't see it. You just keep walking. Think about how magnetic that is. You walk into a room, someone tests you, and you remain unbothered, not because you're fake, not because you don't care, but because you've trained your nervous system to stay sovereign. Your energy says, you don't get to control how I feel, that's mine. Let them wonder why you didn't flinch. Let them get uncomfortable when their manipulation tactics no longer work. Let them spiral while you stay still. That's how you shift the dynamic. You become unshakable, not by controlling the outside world, but by mastering your inner world. This is the emotional equivalent of walking through fire and not burning. People don't forget that. They might not know what it is about you, but they know they feel safe in your presence. They feel your clarity. They feel your stillness. They feel your refusal to engage in emotional chaos. And that makes you irresistibly grounded. Neutrality doesn't mean apathy. You still feel. You just don't react. You don't lash out. You don't match their dysfunction. you rise above it. And when you do, you expose what they've been hiding behind their noise. Silence often reveals more truth than 1,000 arguments ever could. The person who's mastered emotional neutrality never looks desperate, never looks rattled, never looks out of alignment, even in heartbreak, even in betrayal, even in disappointment, because their worth isn't based on circumstances. It's built into their identity, and that identity doesn't waver for anything or anyone. People are drawn to those who feel safe. Not safe because they're agreeable, but safe because they're stable, and you become stable when you stop letting external events dictate your inner state. That's emotional fitness. That's the new currency of power. And that's what creates silent attraction that lingers long after you've left the room. And here's the part most don't understand. When you stay emotionally neutral, you stay in control. Not of others, but of your energy, your choices, your vibration. That's where real influence lies, not in screaming louder, but in staying still while others lose their center. That calm, that's your secret weapon. The world doesn't need more reactors. It needs more responders. People who can feel everything, but respond from alignment, not ego. People who can lose relationships, but not lose themselves. People who can be disappointed, but not defeated. That kind of person carries a quiet strength that others can't help but feel drawn to. You weren't born to be tossed around by emotions like a leaf in the wind. You were born to rise above the storm, to be the one who leads, not the one who pleads, to be the one who decides, not the one who reacts. That's how your presence becomes unforgettable, even in your silence. Because when your emotions no longer control you, no one else can either. And that, my friend, is freedom. That's sovereignty. That's silent power. That's attraction without effort. Because when the world is screaming and you're standing in peace, everyone turns to see who you are. The habit of private wins and humble victories in a world that teaches you to post every move, every accomplishment, every moment of glory. There's something quietly magnetic about the person who wins in silence, who achieves, builds, heals, and transforms, but never makes noise about it. That person, that's the one people can't stop watching, because their power isn't in their words, it's in their walk. You want to become silently attractive. Start stacking wins in private. Start creating discipline that no one claps for. Start showing up for yourself when no one's watching. That's where real confidence comes from. It's not the likes. It's not the praise. It's the inner fire that says, I don't need validation. I have results. When you accomplish things and don't broadcast them, you tap into a different kind of authority. It's the kind of presence that makes people feel something about you, without knowing exactly what it is. They sense the growth, they feel the elevation, they see the change in your eyes, your posture, your peace, and they don't know where it came from. But it's undeniable. Why is this so powerful? Because most people spend their energy trying to look like they're doing well. But the truly powerful ones, they're too busy actually doing the work. They don't need to prove. They don't need to parade. They let the results speak. And results whispered in silence speak louder than screams ever could. Humble victories come from inner alignment, from choosing the high road when revenge looks tempting, from saying no when it would have been easier to say yes, from forgiving yourself for staying too long and finally walking away. These aren't posted with hashtags. These are wins of the soul, and that's the kind of energy people can't look away from. You don't need to post every win to prove your worth. The moment you realize that, you stop performing for the world and start showing up for yourself. The private victory of finishing a morning routine, the silent win of holding your boundary, the personal triumph of choosing peace over pettiness, these are not small, these are massive. People feel when you've done inner work. Even if they don't know your story, they feel your stability. They feel your groundedness. They feel your detachment from drama. That doesn't come from talking about growth. It comes from becoming it. And when you become it, your presence alone becomes a lighthouse for others. Silent success has a gravitational pull. The moment people realize you're not seeking attention, you instantly become more interesting. Why? Because mystery fuels curiosity. When you're not trying to convince anyone of who you are, people lean in. They start wondering. They feel something solid in you. And that's the magnetism you've earned. The quietly attractive don't need the crowd's applause, because they've learned to clap for themselves in the dark, when no one else noticed the struggle, when no one else knew the weight they were carrying, when no one else saw the tears behind the transformation. Those are the winds that shape your soul, and those winds make you powerful beyond belief. Here's the truth: loud people need attention, powerful people don't. And that difference is everything. When you win quietly, your energy starts to shift. You become rooted, you become fulfilled, not from external noise, but from the unshakable foundation you've built within. That energy, it becomes unmistakable. This is the habit of high-value people. They keep their goals sacred. They don't broadcast the seed. They grow it in silence and let the fruit speak for itself. That kind of patience, that kind of discipline creates an inner glow. And people can feel it, even if they don't know why they feel drawn to you. They feel it. You stop chasing attention because attention starts chasing you. You become the person others talk about. Not because you told them to, but because your consistency, your presence, and your progress is speaking in every room you walk into. That's legacy, level energy, and it's built, not broadcasted. This doesn't mean you stay silent forever. It means you respect your process enough to protect it. You don't expose your evolution to opinions that haven't earned the right to speak into your life. You win, you grow, you evolve. And you let people witness the shift when it's done, not when it's still being built. Silent success doesn't mean you're hiding, it means you're mastering. It means you're no longer driven by applause, but by alignment. And that shift makes you unstoppable. It makes you deeply attractive in a way that's hard to define, but impossible to ignore. Because in the end, the person who can rise without noise, transform without needing praise, and achieve without asking for approval, that person becomes unforgettable. Not because they shouted, but because they became the evidence. Become the person who doesn't need to be loud to be legendary. What makes someone silently attractive isn't magic. It's the result of consistent habits, quiet courage, and powerful internal shift. It's about becoming so deeply aligned with your highest self that you no longer chase validation. You radiate value. You no longer beg for love. You embody it. You don't force connection. You attract it through the gravity of who you've become. We live in a world obsessed with noise. Social media screams for attention. People overshare to feel seen. Everyone's trying to go viral just to matter, but not you, not anymore. You're choosing something stronger, something rarer. You're choosing the path of quiet confidence, of emotional mastery, of becoming a force that doesn't need to announce itself, because it's felt in every room you walk into. You're now stepping into the energy of someone who leads without needing to be followed. Someone who speaks with such precision that people lean in. Someone who listens with such presence that others feel safe in your silence. And someone who stacks private victories not for applause, but for the foundation of an unshakable life. This speech wasn't about surface-level attraction. This was about becoming the kind of human who draws people in without trying. Because your energy is clean, your boundaries are firm, your presence is authentic, and your life is aligned. This is about substance over spectacle, power over performance, mastery over noise. You've been handed the blueprint, not just to attract, but to evolve, because silent attraction isn't a trick, it's a transformation. And once you've got it, you don't lose it, because it's not something you do, it's something you are: quiet, powerful, magnetic, grounded, free. So walk out into your life with this truth: you don't need to chase anyone. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to outperform or outshine. Just keep showing up, keep growing, keep listening, keep moving in silence, winning in peace, healing in private, and building a presence that speaks for itself. You are no longer desperate to be chosen, because you've finally chosen yourself, and the world, it will catch up, it will feel you, It will notice you, not because you shouted, but because you became undeniable.